edition of On the Fly. I'm your host, Eric, and with me today I have a very special agency friend and guest, Ginzburg. Gene?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited. We met because both of our companies were on the Fast 50 list of the Denver Business Journal, and then you came to my podcast.
We shared a very prestigious award together, which my agency and your company are very small in the spectrum of that, right?
I believe it's called the extra small or something.
Yeah, it's always nice to be categorized as extra small, don't you think? With that, it's kind of cool that extra small companies can have a big impact.
I agree.
So I think you and I, we share a lot of things in common. I think one of those things is our services are centered around the digital world. Today we want to talk about really the topic of, I think, repurposing content and how to get like double word score from some of the things you're doing and stuff out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so when you and I got to know each other, I of course looked you up and did a little due diligence on you. And when I look into your bio, I get caught on so many accolades that you've received.
I don't know about that.
I'm going to rattle off a few here, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. So you've won several awards for growth, certainly at Ginzburg. Mm-hmm. You've also won several. You're well-published, best-selling author. I think written for Inc. You've written for Forbes. You've written for the HuffPost. Mm-hmm. You've won several female business person type awards as well. So you've been very, very recognized for your work. What is it that your central service is as a consultant and agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do something similar to what you guys do. We're a digital marketing agency and consultancy. So we help entrepreneurs find customers using digital and social strategies, because we find that now everybody's hanging out on their phone these days. So we're trying to intercept them there and bring value and have our clients engage with their audiences on social media. We also have a new part of our company, which probably was about a year old or so, maybe 6 months, is that we've taken all the learnings from our agency and then put them into trainings, courses, digital courses.
Okay. So educational stuff.
So we have an educational part of the company that, again, only about 6 months to a year. So and that's been great, because now we can help entrepreneurs who are maybe up and coming, smaller, who can take these courses and kind of have a DIY approach. They learn how to do digital on their own, but then and implement all those strategies without having to, let's say, pay an agency if they're at that point. Maybe they don't have a budget for an agency.
And what I heard is that you help companies get their message in front of the audience where the audience is today, and you can either help them by helping them do it, or you can help them by learning how to do it themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. So there's
Very
a few methods on how we work with our clients.
Awesome. So let's talk content. Content is widely interpreted, widely used. There's all sorts of forms of content. What we're doing right now is a video podcast. Absolutely. I know you guys do a lot of those at your agency. Talk to me about the concept of content and repurposing it and how we can work on that.
Right. So as I mentioned before, everybody's hanging out on their phones. They're on social media. So how do brands then engage with their audiences on social media, right? So it's putting content out there. And one of the challenges that I hear all the time from brands, from clients is, hey, I have a business to run. I don't have time to create content,
No time. Big objection. No time.
I hear this day in and day out. So the things that we came up with, and there's other people in the industry. This is definitely not revolutionary, but something that I think is very important to think about and to implement in your business, is that you can create content. You can create one piece of content and then repurpose it in many different ways. And I always say, hey, you can create one video and you can have content for the rest of the month. So we're doing this video now, right? So this video will be a video. You can then cut it into shorter videos, so you can talk. So you can have maybe a 5-minute segment of this video. So that's multiple.
Or even like a 10 or 15 second clip where you say something super powerful and you want to regurgitate that and use it in a different application.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, let's say, for example, for Instagram stories, you can make a 15-second clip out of what we're doing now, and that's an Instagram story. So cut a 15-minute video into 15 seconds. You have thousands, or I don't know, hundreds.
Lots.
Lots. Yeah. I can't do the math right now.
We're not. we don't know math agencies.
Yeah, no, we don't. I don't know much about math. I need to always use my calculator.
So yeah, I think the point you're bringing up there is if you don't have time, you can talk about something you're passionate about,
right?
Something you know about, something you're expert about, in whatever format you're comfortable with. But then you can repurpose that multiple times, multiple different formats, and really get a lot more. Like you're getting like double, triple, quadruple word score out of that content.
Yes, absolutely. Right? So so in this example, the video we have here, cut up the video, then you can strip out the audio from the video and make it into a podcast episode, which I'm sure is what you're going to do.
We will do that for sure.
You can transcribe the audio and then make a blog post or several blog posts out of it. So you transcribe the audio, get basically all the words that you're saying, and then clean it up and make it into a blog post. You can take quotes out of your audio and then make them into quote images. There's many different things.
Very good. You can make some visual elements out of that. You can make some audio elements out of that. You can make written words out of that.
Video, absolutely.
Another objection that I hear is people don't have time and they also don't like to write, or they're not comfortable writing, or they're not comfortable on camera.
Right.
I may be comfortable on camera but can't stand writing. You may be comfortable writing but can't stand the camera. So how do you deal with that? Like it sounds like if you're not comfortable writing, get your words out on video and then be able to transcribe it. It's a great way to come up with content, right?
Yeah, I'm not really a great writer, and blog posts have always been a pain in the butt for me. So instead of sitting in front of a computer trying to figure out what I'm trying to write, I just create a video and then I get it transcribed, and then my team puts together a blog, at least one blog, maybe several blogs. They cut out and make it into several blogs out of just one video. So now you have tens, maybe probably dozens of pieces of content out there that you can then post to social media. And what I always say is two things. One is create a content calendar so you can schedule everything out in advance. That way you're staying organized.
Do your planning.
Yeah, absolutely. That way you're not like, oh my God, I forgot to post my video today or my... and then two is use a scheduling platform like Hootsuite or Buffer or something like that. And you can schedule it out so that way I have everything scheduled out for the week for my social media this week, for example. That way I don't have to be like, oh, I forgot to,
Big efficiency there, too, for those that don't have time. To be efficient, use a platform out that, first you get some intelligence there, you get some efficiency tools within the scheduling, and you certainly have the ability then to maybe post at times where you just don't, in the heat of your day, really have availability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't always be posting. You can always be closing, but you can't always be posting, for example.
Well said. Okay.
So schedule that out, and it's going to go tomorrow at 10 a.m. on your LinkedIn. So there you go, and you can use it, of course, across different social media channels, right? So you can take one video, put it on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Sure.
Right. So now you're also getting
multi-channel.
Yeah, multi-channel horizontally, right?
Yeah.
So many different ways on how you can repurpose content, and you can do all this in a couple of hours if you sit down, create your video, do all the steps, blog. Create some images. I use Canva, right?
Canva's a fantastic tool. We use it all the time.
You don't
free.
Need to. Yep.
It's easy. It's intuitive.
You don't need to be a designer. Like I'm terrible at that. So I have either me or my team would create the Canva images, the social media images.
Yeah, no excuses, right? Okay. Absolutely. So you showed a lot of ways to save some time there. We've discussed some different formats of content. I think like sort of the social media concept. Social media, it's sort of like email marketing. It's one of those things that's so widely interpreted, so misinterpreted. There's so much misinformation out there and stuff. There's a lot of businesses that just believe, oh, social's not right for me because I'm a B2B business, or Facebook's not right for me, or Instagram's not right for me. What advice would you give the audience, regardless of B2B, B2C, B2E, what size they are, right? Like what their service or product is, like what do they need to know about social media? Like what would your advice to them be globally there?
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting point. I hear that all the time. It's like, a business owner will be like, oh, I'm not on Facebook. It's like, well, just because you're not on Facebook doesn't mean that your audiences are not on Facebook, like the people that you're trying to reach. So in terms of social media, I would say it's going to require some testing, right? I mean, you can kind of get an idea theoretically of where your audience are hanging out based on what your business model is. So if you're B2B, they're probably most likely on LinkedIn.
Sure.
If you're more trying to reach entrepreneurs, they're probably more likely to be on Facebook or Instagram, right? So those are kind of just very general and broad terms. But then the main thing is you're going to start testing and you're going to see where you're going to get the most engagement. So putting content on LinkedIn, are people engaging with you? Is this the right message for them? or are they engaging with you more on Facebook, for example? So it's going to require a little bit of testing, and then after some testing, you're going to see what's working and what's not.
Absolutely. So to the testing point, you're now coming up with these pieces of content. So I think you're recommending that you would use different formats for that content and different platforms. So you've got some cross-functional testing to do there and stuff.
Right.
You know, one of the things I know is a challenge with social media is like it's very difficult with a lot of the algorithms and stuff like that to truly even reach your known audience, much less your unknown audience. Do you have any tips or strategies for like targeting and reach, and like how do I know that business owners, for instance, are on Facebook, but none of my 245 friends are business owners. So how do I reach them? Do you suggest promoted content? Do you suggest advertising? Like how do you supplement that social media so it's not just posting to, you know, get a bunch of crickets in return?
Right, and that's a good point. It is based on the algorithm, and for example, the LinkedIn algorithm now, you're getting into the feed much more often. And again, I don't know exactly the background of it, but for Facebook, it is a little bit more challenging now to get into the feed. So yes, for instances like that, then my recommendation would be things like boosting posts, finding your audiences and doing detailed targeting, and then running some ads. So that way, you're getting engagement. You might have to pay a little bit for it, but you're at least getting some sort of engagement versus just crickets, which is a good point.
And it's also good for testing, right?
Right.
Because to me, like the idea of like being able to boost a post or something, you put a piece of content out you're proud of and you think it's going to reach the right audience and it's got a great message in it. To me, there's not a lot of harm done in throwing a $20, $50 bill at it and trying to dial down the people you want to see that content, right?
Right.
Is that something that you recommend within your testing, is to do some little micro doses of spending and stuff and try different things and of course see what works and build on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I would recommend, especially for a platform like Facebook, where yes, you do have to somewhat often pay for promoting, is promoting your videos. So if you promote videos as an objective of video views, then you get people who are watching your videos. If they're engaging with your videos, one thing you can do is then you can retarget those individuals who have watched your video, and then they're basically what we call a warm audience, right? An audience who is already engaged with your brand, and then it's much easier than to continue on engaging with them.
Stay in touch with them.
Absolutely.
It's that frequency. Work some of your nurturing sequences.
Yes.
Continue the education and things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then you can get some extra value out of that maybe original $20 you spent by staying in touch with them beyond that. That way it's not all or nothing. They have to like read this blog article or watch this podcast and click on a button and fill out a form and now they're a lead. You get to reach them without making them fill things out for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's really the way we a lot of times schedule or create our campaigns, I would say, is that we start off with videos. We just run it on Facebook as video view campaigns and then retarget those audiences. Basically, you know, it's kind of, you think of it as a funnel, right? The video views is the top of the funnel. You know, if they like you, they're going to engage with your video. And then as you go down into the funnel, you're going to then retarget those audiences for the next step. Might be looking at a blog or maybe filling out a lead, and then
some
further
sort of
down.
resource. It could be some sort of comparison guide or educational piece of template that they can put to use. You know, something like maybe a creative brief or something like that.
Yep, absolutely. So it's a little bit more. I think you have to kind of get a little bit more creative these days, and it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna put an ad out there and I'm gonna send them to, you know, a lead or a
landing
product.
page with a form, book a consultation, something like that. It's also more creative in like the format of content, you know, formats like this and stuff. I think we've covered this topic really well. I think you've given a lot of great advice that can really help the audience, but I still see that like big hurdle for everybody out there, that question or objection of like, well, what if I don't know what to talk about, write about, or whatever? Like, how do I come up with ideas for content? How do I do topic generation, right? How do I know what's going to resonate with my audience? Do you have any advice around like the types of content, the types of topics people should be talking about, like regardless, sort of like format independent? How would you handle that?
Right, and I get that question asked all the time. What should I do? What kind of content should I create, right? So first of all, I would say talk about the content that you're most passionate about, right? If you love knitting, then talk about knitting. I mean, it just depends also how you want to structure your business, right?
Sure.
Is it just a hobby for you and you just really are passionate about knitting and you want to talk about it? Great. If you want to create a business about knitting, then talk about knitting, but then also have some sort of component of selling products or selling something in it, right?
Instructional classes, education, something like that.
Yeah, perfect.
However, if I do build custom cabinets, I probably don't want to write about knitting, do I?
Exactly, yeah. So I would say whatever it is that you're either passionate about.
Start with your service.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I would say the one thing that I always recommend when it comes to, especially with businesses, is all businesses get frequently asked questions, right? So you probably have spoken to your clients, your customers, and they are going to ask you the exact same question 50 times, 50,000 times, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well
hey,
said.
how do I use Facebook to get bigger reach? How do I use social media to engage with my audiences? These are questions I get asked probably every day, if not if not several times a day.
Certainly.
So take those questions, those frequently asked questions that your audiences ask you, or your clients, or your customers, or your prospective customers, and then make content out of that. That's perfect.
It's a really good tip. I think for me, the best way to come up with your content is go to your salesperson and ask them what are the questions you get asked during the sales process all the time, right? Because there's definitely a consistent sort of set of questions, those frequently asked questions that, hey, you should probably consider answering those in the sales cycle, but you can also consider answering those before they even have those questions with all of this content. And now you're educating really without anything in expectation of in return, and maybe even make the salesperson's job easier. You certainly make the buying cycle easier, right?
Is marketing really the method to make the salesperson's job easier, right? Isn't that what
Absolutely.
marketing is supposed to do?
We're all here to serve sales. Awesome, Gene. This is fantastic. I really appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you being a guest here.
Thank
now,
you.
the backside of this is help me understand how someone might be able to connect with you, learn more from you. You got a book about this stuff. You post about this stuff all the time. You've got a very active podcast as well. They can find you on social media, I presume.
Yeah, all over social media. So if you just find Gene Ginzburg on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, it's all Gene Ginzburg. Same thing with my website, geneginsburg.com. My book is called Win New Customers, How to Attract, Connect, and Convert More Prospects into Customers in 60 Days Using Digital Strategies. I know that's a mouthful.
Seems relevant, though. Seems relevant. The tagline makes it a mouthful,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. So Win New Customers, you can find that on Amazon. So yeah, I'd love to get in touch with you guys if you have any questions. I know that Eric, of course, can answer always questions about social media and digital marketing too.
We'll share all this stuff and link it all up. For
Awesome.
those of you looking for new people to follow, great educational content, someone that's really sharp and to the point, I would highly recommend giving Gina a follow. Consuming her content could give you some ideation, could give you some ideas for yourself, and certainly could give you some tips and recommendations on how to do any of the ideas you're trying to put to market a little bit better, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Gene. It's good to see you again.
Yep.
It's great to be friends as agencies and peers and stuff like that. It's always good to get together and talk about the topics that we're passionate about.
Geek out about all the stuff, right?
Absolutely. So thanks for coming into the agency. We'll go upstairs and introduce you to some of the crew that's around, and,
Awesome.
and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. See y'all.